Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining. Super excited to have this presentation about Firewise communities. And yeah, I'll let you take it away, Chief Burris. And
All right. Well, thanks for the invite, and excited to kind of give you guys some information on Firewise. And so my plan is to just kind of go through some of the documents and stuff, and kind of the process, kind of real quickly. Hopefully, take about 10 or 15 minutes to do that, and then give you guys, 15 minutes or so to ask any questions to kind of clarify this. So one thing with Firewise is you got to remember it's an NFPA program, so it's implemented nationally, and so because of that, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish your Firewise community status. The state of California has kind of since Cal Fire kind of took over the state liaison positions for Firewise in California, we've had to kind of pivot a little bit and kind of implement some other kind of requirements that may not be required in other states. And a lot of that has been driven by the insurance industry. So Firewise Communities NFPA, it wasn't built to work with insurance agencies. And so that's just something that's come to fruition because insurance agencies decided that, if people are in a Firewise community, it may allow them to maintain their insurance, get insurance, or receive discounts. And the insurance commissioner for California has recognized Firewise and has provided that information to insurance agencies, and they've kind of accepted that. And so we've kind of had to pivot a little bit. So some of the documents that we require you to do in the state of California is really to best position yourselves to set up for success to receive those insurance benefits. And so it's all stuff to help you guys in the long run accomplish those types of things. And so it's Firewise is a community-based organization, and so it's not the state or the government or whatever coming in and telling you what you need to do. It's really about neighbors talking to neighbors and educating neighbors, and working together to make the whole community safer from wildfire. And we've also found some other benefits from that where excuse me, apologize, where you know it's kind of bringing this also kind of brings those neighborhoods together, and it allows people to open up conversations with neighbors that you might not normally talk to, and really get together as a neighborhood, and become more resilient to wildfire. And by doing so, you're kind of creating the defense that needs to be in place for that community. And then when there is a fire, then the fire departments and Cal Fire will come in and provide the offense, and it really makes it safer for the individuals in the community as well as the firefighters that are responding to the community. And so it's a really great program. And so I'm going to share with you real quick just and I apologize, I'm not a Zoom guy. We use other platforms, but let me see if we can, let's see if we can get this here. Let's go screen 2. Share. Okay, so can you guys see the NFPA site?
yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys can see the right page. So when you're set up to Firewise, you can go to the Firewise NFPA Firewise USA site, and on there it walks you through all the steps in becoming Firewise. And there's a map on there where the Firewise communities get placed on a map. And as you can see, there are already some in the Mendocino County area. And so there's a lot of good information on here, a lot of good links to that. Another place where you can go and get a lot of good information is the Cal Fire Ready for Wildfire site. And so on here, we have a whole section just on Firewise communities. And It walks you through the process as well. And so we work with NFPA regularly. And so our process is outlined in the NFPA process as well. So whichever route you kind of go, you're going to get the same information. Let's see. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is organize. And this usually happens with, what we like to call a spark plug, somebody that's motivated and has the time and is passionate about, making their community more resilient to wildfire. And they're going to kind of organize and maybe hopefully find a couple other people in the community that, are willing to be spark plugs as well. And then once you do that, you're going to kind of decide, well, what kind of would our boundary be? And so setting a boundary is important. You don't want to go too small and you don't want to go too big. You want it to be manageable for the people that are going to be involved. But it's really difficult to grow your community to make it larger. So we ask that you create your boundary a little bit larger and take into consideration the hazards around you, and then you educate out to that boundary. And so everybody that's within that boundary doesn't have to necessarily be active. The idea is to work with them and get them active eventually. But based on how many residential units are within that boundary is going to set up how much of defensible space work you need to do yearly, which is a very small amount. It's literally 1 hour per residential unit. And most people do, an hour a week in their own yard, whether it's mowing down dry grass or cleaning gutters or, doing anything like that. So it's really a pretty low and easy threshold to maintain. And then once you do that, then start the planning process. It's nice to establish a board, which is usually your spark plugs, and it's it's an unofficial board. It's just kind of the spark plugs in that community, and you decide what your boundary is, and then you go through, you start working your way through the process. And so one of the documents I want to show you, why is this blocking me? Can I move this? Yeah, there we go. So really the first kind of thing you're going to do is an assessment. And this can be done with the board members. We highly recommend that you include a fire official in these assessments. And that's one of the things that's required under the insurance commissioner and the insurance agencies, is to have a fire official involved in this assessment process. But it's not required, it's just highly recommended. The assessment is really easy. It's a matter of you and your other spark plugs or board members and fire official, just driving around the community and taking a look at the different things on this document. And the assessment's not home by home. Like, you don't need to go house to house to house and check every single house. It's more of just an overview of the demographic of that community. And so in here, you're going to put your participants' names. This is where it's beneficial to list the fire official, your site information, and then, basic descriptions of the property, single family, duplex, mobile homes. The really easy questions, it's all check boxes, mostly check boxes in this first part. And as you can see, under roofing material, it's like, is it greater than 75%? Is it 50 to 70, 25 to 50? So it's a broad range. So you don't have to be as specific as some people think, where you got to go house to house. So it's just kind of a broad overview of the demographics and building components within that community. And so you just work your way through this checklist. And then towards the end here is the summary, and you just kind of summarize what your findings were. And then the really key part of this document is recommendations. So in here, you're going to list the recommendations that you've come up with, that your fire official has come up with. And based on the recommendations in this section is how you're going to build your 3-year action plan. which is the other required part of this process. And then on here is a place for you to upload your map. Now, some people have difficulties in getting the map onto this document. And so when you're in the NFPA portal and you're doing your application process, there's a place for you to just upload the map separately. So don't struggle with putting it on this document if you can't get it on there. We try to make it as easy as possible. So that's the assessment. Once the assessment's done, then you will move on to creating a 3-year action plan. And so there's a California specific template that we built for California to help individuals with this process and ideas on actions. So in the 3-year action plan, it gives some instructions and moves on into so you're going to be able to change all this information on here. So like this action plan is just a template from 2022, 2024. If you submit your application in 2024, then your action plan would start the next year because you've already done the work for that year, and you would start your action plan. So it'd be 2025 to 2027. And then you just put, year 1 is 2025. And then we just ask you to put things in each one of these sections. And remember, you're going to get this information from your recommendations on your assessment. And it's just creating a 3-year action plan. And, the idea here is to build off of your actions from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. And then this is really your guide, to what do we need to work on? What do we want to work on? And then it comes to year 2, it's like, oh, let's look at our 3-year action plan. What were we going to try to accomplish this year? And it's really just a kind of a working guide for you guys to utilize for things to work on. Now, nobody checks to make sure if you list stuff in year 1 and you didn't accomplish it, you can work on it in year 2. Nobody's checking to confirm that you did these things in year 1. So don't look at it as, that somebody's going to check it and it's required to complete all these. It's just kind of a guide for you guys as you're trying to make your community more safe. All right, so 3-year action plan. So let's see, let's go back here. 3-year action plan. So once you complete those documents, then you're going to go into the NFPA site. You're going to create a Firewise site. It's a really easy process. It really walks you through all the requirements. As you can see right now, there's 740 communities that are in good standing in the state of California. So it's not hard to accomplish. I'll just go back here for that. And then the other thing is the map. The map is really important because we want to really define what that boundary is. And whatever map you create, NFPA takes that map and puts it on a different, in a different format. So it's really nice to have a good map. And so I'm just going to show you a couple examples of some maps here. So here, see, it's just a basic map, but on this map, it shows the roads, it shows all the different parcels. And so, that's really all we need is just, a boundary map that shows, the homes or parcels and the streets so that we can take that map and put it into a better format when creating your boundary. Let's see here. I'll show you another example real quick. So here's another map that looks different, but still a good map. So we can see all the homes in there. We can see the street names, and the boundary is clearly defined. And then I will show you an example of kind of what we don't want you to do when you're creating your boundary. Okay, so this map is a little busy, but they have highlighted the areas where their community is going to be, fairly large community. So if you go down here at the bottom and you see this parcel 455, so we don't want parcels just out like by itself outside the boundary, and we don't want ones not included. We want clear, defined boundary lines. And so, why is 455 included, not 105 included? Like if 105 was included, then we could, it would be fine. But we don't want to just checkerboard these boundaries. And so if you look up here in the middle, like 120, like 120 doesn't, why is that one not included? Right? Like that one should be included to create a clean line here. And then if you go up into the kind of the top right, like this 3329, well, why wasn't that one included? It would have been easy just to include that one and really clean those lines up. And so we don't want to exclude people. We want to include them, and we want to make sure there's a clearly defined boundary using roadways, and parcels and stuff, to include people in that. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing. Excuse me. And so once you kind of go through the process, and and you can take your time doing this. It could take 3 months, 6 months. It could take a year to complete all this. It's all based on how quickly you guys want to move and how motivated you are. But there's no timestamp on it. And so once you go in and establish your portal, there's those documents I went over that need to be completed and kind of a process, but you can move through that process at your own pace. And you can work on part of the application and then come back and work on some more, and everything just stays in there. And so it's not, once you start the portal, like you have to complete it right then. Like you have the time to do so. And then once you submit all those documents and complete all the information on the portal, then and submit your application, then it gets sent to me. I review all the applications in the North State, and so I'll review the application. If it's approved, then it goes to NFPA for final approval. And then if it's not approved, if something's missing or something's not right, you'll get a denial and a message of the things that you need to do to fix it. And then also the contact information for Fire Captain James Osbo, who's on the meeting. So he's kind of your contact at the CAL FIRE level in Mendocino County to help guide you through the process and answer any questions you might have. And so, he can help you, work on correcting those things that need to be corrected. And so the idea is here to, kind of support you guys all the way through the process. And once it's approved, then every year there's a renewal requirement. And renewals are due in the middle of November. And then we review all the renewals by the end of the year, and then so that your status gets renewed in January of that following year. And so in order to renew each year, you have to do 1 hour of work per home, per residential unit, and have that documented. And like I said, if you have 5 homes and 4 of them don't do any work and one of them does 5 hours, then that still covers those individuals. And so it's just hours per residential unit within that boundary. And then you have to do a community event each year, some sort of educational event. And sometimes those are at a fire department pancake breakfast, or or whatever. It can be any kind of event, could be an HOA event, anything that's going on. You can set up a table and hand out information, and that counts as your community event. And then every 3 years, you have to update the 3-year action plan. And then every 5 years, you have to update the community assessment. So I think that covers it pretty quickly. Is there I'd like to open it up for any questions if you have any.
What is Jim's last name?
Osbo. It's James, James,
Mhm.
last of Osbo, Ausboe.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Keith Rutledge with Sherwood Firewise, and thanks for the presentation, really informative. We're getting ready to renew with NFPA, but we haven't done anything with CAL FIRE. We've been, Firewise since 2018, 2019, and then our assessment is due next year. Jeff Tennell was our original mentor for the Firewise USA. So could you please, sort of, should we start working with you? We were just talking about whether we wanted to get a hold of Jeff again to update our assessment for next year. But you're saying that we need to also renew not just with NFPA, but with CAL FIRE now. Is that right?
No, sorry for that confusion. So you still go through the full NFPA process. It's all through NFPA. It's just that we're the ones that are going to review those applications through the NFPA portal. So we'll be doing the renewals, but it's all through NFPA, and so no change in that process.
So the action plan and the community assessment documents are basically the same. It's just California has a branded one, or are there any differences?
So the assessment is an NFPA document that they have available for people to use throughout the nation. We just require that you use that assessment document in California. And then the 3-year action plan is specific to California.
Okay, so when we have to do our action plan next year, we'll be using that California document rather than the NFPA document.
Correct.
Okay. And Shane, you're the contact rather than Jeff Tennell for anything we need going forward?
Yeah, or like first I would reach out to Fire Captain James Osbo. And then if not, you can reach out to me.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Yep, no problem.
How do we reach James? Is there a contact number or place or what?
Yeah, we'll have James. Can you put that in the chat?
I've got a question about, so the community event, you don't have to organize your own event. You can also like table at an existing community event, and that is, oh, that's great. That's nice.
Yep. You can tie on to any existing events, which makes it nice. It's like, hey, can we set up a table at the whatever, the craft fair, the flea market, the pancake breakfast, whatever it might be, and just tie on to one of those events.
At Fire Dog, California.
Yeah, so James put his email in the chat there.
James and Shane, if we've done basically everything that you've listed in the past year, we just need to document it out. Does that count, or do we need to do that going forward?
No, like if you've done, most of this stuff already, it's just a matter of documenting it and completing the application.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So a lot of places have already, like for this year, like, oh, well, we've done more than 100 hours of work and we've done a community event and we've done all that. Perfect. Just document it and submit it with your application.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I see a question from Carla in Westport. She says, can you talk about insurance companies' interface to prevent insurance cancellation?
So we can only talk a little bit about the insurance agencies. Also, they're a private entity, right? So they can kind of do what they want. But the insurance commissioner has done a good job of trying to reining them in and trying to, obviously we have insurance companies leaving, canceling people, that type of stuff. And he's tried to give reasons for them to continue to have coverage and to provide discounts to individuals. And so Firewise USA is one of the things that he's convinced them to consider when they're doing so. And so under the Safer from Wildfire information on the insurance commissioner's website, there's certain things that are taken into consideration and by these insurance companies. And one of those is, do you have a community that's, that a Firewise community? Do they have a clearly defined boundary? Do they have some sort of plan, on doing fuel reduction work? Have they do they have a fire official involved in their process? And so all those things, we've taken that and put it into the requirements to become Firewise in California. And so to set everybody up for success for that. Now, once you become Firewise, your insurance agent they have an entity that they can contact. James, what's the name of that? It's lost me for a second. Verisk. So insurance companies have the ability to be a member of what's called Verisk, and they can go through Verisk and they can actually see who's in a Firewise community. And then based on that, then it's totally up to them. But a lot of them are giving discounts if you're in a Firewise community, allowing people to maintain insurance, not be canceled, or even to get insurance. But it's all case by case. But going through this process sets you up in the best position to maintain your insurance or receive discounts. So hopefully that answers your question on insurance.
Yes, thank you.
I see Lisa from Yorkville is asking, do controlled burns count as community hours if community participates?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, any fuel reduction work. Yep, absolutely.
Could you talk just a little bit more about why people would want to have their local fire professionals, either from their local fire department or from CAL FIRE, come help do that risk assessment, and why that would be an important step to take? Okay,
so two big reasons. So one is obviously for the insurance purposes, right? To document that a fire professional has been involved, and to meet the insurance requirement type stuff. The second reason is, and I've done a lot of these assessments, and sometimes you'll go out to a community and the community members think, hey, our threat is to the east. Like we really need to work on, hardening the homes and doing fuel reduction work on the east side of our community. We think that's where our biggest threat is. And the fire official can come in and say, well, based on weather, topography, fire history, actually your hazard is to the west. That's where your threat is. That's where I would focus your work. So they can help you, kind of guide you on what your priorities might be, and what they would suggest that you work on. And so they just kind of give their input, their professional opinion. And that's why it's really beneficial to have somebody that works in that local area, your CAL FIRE engine or battalion chief, or your local fire district, chief, or, something like that. Somebody that has a lot of good local knowledge about that area. So those are really the two important reasons to have a fire official included, part of your assessment.
So I've got a question regarding just that. I'm in an SRA here, and CAL FIRE does come through about once a year and sends us individual, outside fire assessments. Would that be part of what could we include that in the application as a backup, or should we have a separate request for CDF fire assessments?
So the assessments I assume you're talking about are the 4291 clearance inspections.
I think
Correct.
Is that basically the guy comes along and tells me if my trees are too close to the wood stove pipe.
Yeah. So that's just a 4291, defensible space requirement that's required by state law. But when you're doing this assessment, you would want a fire official to drive around with you and give you their input on the community as a whole, not just your home.
Okay, basically, so get a little organized, call up CDF, say, hey, you got a morning, come on down.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Yep, and then you can reach out to James Osbo if you have a hard time, reaching out to the unit. If if you're not, getting somebody to come help you, he can kind of help facilitate that. And we have some contacts in each of the units, and
That's okay. I know where they live.
perfect.
And Carla wants to clarify, volunteer fire department official would be able to do that as well, right?
Yep.
Can I ask one question about the timeline? You said that every November is when things are due. So is there any benefit, like if every 5 years they have to turn in their risk assessment, is that always going to be in November? Or if they apply in April, is it 5 years from April?
So you don't have to do a renewal the year that you apply. So let's say you did your application, you got approved in January next year. So January of 2024. You wouldn't need to do a renewal that year. It would start the following year. So whatever year you do your application, that's considered when you've done that, because done that work. So Firewise isn't a certification, it's a recognition. So that's why you got to do the application, you got to complete the hours, your educational event before you can apply. And so it shows that you've already done the work. So that counts for that year. And then your 3-year action plan and all that would start the following year. But yes, renewals are due every November. It's like the second Friday of November
Okay.
it's the same every year.
And for everything, for like redoing every 3 years, your action plan, every 5 years, your wildfire risk assessment, all of that is in November. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And you'll get, NFPA advertises it a lot. We advertise it. The resident leaders get notified, of when that renewal process is. And you basically just go back into your portal and it shows renewal application and you just complete. And if you're required to do a 3-year action plan, it'll tell you. If you're required to do a 5-year assessment, it'll tell you. And really the key is just documenting your hours and your community event. That's every year. And then there's other documents as they come along.
Good question, Carla. How does this overlap or not with CWPPs, which are Community Wildfire Protection Plans?
So it doesn't, they're really two totally separate kind of programs. I know that there has been communities that, say a community of 150 has their own CWPP. They may choose to make that their Firewise community boundary as well. And if you do have a CWPP, you can utilize the information that's in there to help with your assessment or help with your 3-year action plan. Because there's actions defined in that CWPP, and so you can use that as a tool as creating your 3-year action plan. But yeah, other than that, they're two totally separate things, but you can use that information.
One more question. So the boundary size, I believe it was like 8 households to something like 2,500, which would be, a very huge community. But it seems like with meeting the hour requirement, that's actually like pretty low. That it would be better to like go big, to like go on the bigger side. I just am wondering if you have any kind of thoughts about like what an ideal community size is. I'm sure it changes depending on where you are, but it seems to me like kind of erring on the side of bigger would be best.
So I'll kind of give you some of the guidelines we use. So eight is the minimum. We really don't like to see low numbers like that, especially if they're in a part of a larger community, right? We don't want to piece together that community. If you have let's say you have a community of 300, we don't want 50 Firewise sites within that one community. So where a smaller number makes sense is if you have this little tiny community out in a very rural area where they're separated from everything else, and there's 10 homes out there and they want to become their own Firewise community, we absolutely support that on the lower number side. The number really is kind of somewhat defined by your boundaries and also your community involvement. So you kind of got to find that happy medium. I think, in the couple hundred range is usually pretty manageable. Once you get to close to 500 and going above, here in California, we require you to zone it out. And so let's say you have 1,000 in a community. With 1,000, we would like to see you have, maybe 3 zones. And each one of those zones, you have a zone leader. And so you have the main resident leader, and then you have some zone leaders. Because if you think about living in an area where there's 1,000 homes and it's really, this program is neighbors talking to neighbors, 1,000 homes away is a long ways away, right? As far as being able to have that line of communication. So if you have some spark plugs spread out throughout there and you have these zones, then it becomes more manageable. And, and then 2,500 is the absolute max that NFPA will allow. And just, and a lot of this is just from past experience. I mean, I've been doing Firewise now for about 12 years. And so, currently working with a Firewise site that, was established, when I was up in Plumas County, and where, they had this whole huge fire district and it was this large area. And now we're working with them to break that up into smaller communities because it became too large for one person to manage. And so we're actually breaking that one up and making, like 5 smaller communities with each having their own resident leader. And so it's really kind of a balance of, really the involvement in the community, the size, how many spark plugs you have, but we can help you with those ideas and concepts, as you're going through the process.
Go ahead, Anita.
Hi, my opposite question is, I have a really small community of about 30 residences, and we have not so much involvement. So how would you suggest a community that's rather weak get started? Or is it better to think of a whole area? Like I live in Anderson Valley and my Firewise community is part of a small town in Anderson Valley. Would it be better to organize all of Anderson Valley as a Firewise community? Maybe they've already done that and I don't know about it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people do you say are in Anderson Valley? Like
about 4,000.
Yeah, so that's pretty big. I think if you have your own community that's, somewhat separated and well defined at 30, I mean, I think that's a good number, especially if you don't have a lot of current involvement. And so, I mean, in 30, for one person might seem like a lot, right? So that's 30 hours you got to complete each year. The normal person, does 30 hours of work around their home anyways. You know what I mean? Like, and if you could find one other person that's to do 15 hours and you only got to do 15 hours, like that's not too far fetched. And also, we like those volunteer hours to be around that threshold. So if you have 30 residential units to do 30 hours of volunteer work, but if you have a hazard tree or you pay somebody to come in and do some fuel reduction work, that the amount that you pay them can also be converted into hours as well.
Oh, okay. That was going to be a follow-up question. Do contractors and their work count?
Yes. And so there's a rate that NFPA, it changes year to year. I think right now it's around $29 and something cents. So every $29 is worth an hour of work.
Thank you.
Yep. And there's a place on your portal where you can document that. You can document, the vegetation that's been removed, how much, how many volunteer hours you've done, and how much you've paid a contractor, and it all calculates for you and to meet your minimums.
Thanks.
I have a question, Shane. In our PUD, the units have just 18 feet on each side of the residence that's landscapable. And we all have our yards landscaped and they're green and they're watered and all that. There isn't a lot of land other than that for us to volunteer in as owners, but we do pay contractors to mow our egress road, keep that cleared, and to keep our wild grasses cut down. Does there have to be volunteer work from owners? Because most of us are elderly and we pretty much, there isn't much we can do in our yards. It's pretty much all contracted work. Is that okay or not?
You count what you pay for.
It is like, we like to see the volunteer hours because that's really what the program is built around.
Yeah.
But, you know, under circumstances like that, the key is to let us know when you're doing your application, to let us know, you know, make contact with, hey, we're getting ready to submit our application. You know, we're not going to have a lot of volunteer hours on there because this is a situation. And then you're fine. As long as the work's being done and that's the situation you're in, then that's absolutely acceptable.
Okay.
Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, does attendance at the local meetings and the Mendocino County meetings count as hours? Or is it actual work?
Yeah, the hours have to be related to fuel reduction. Yep. Yeah, not really. I mean, if you went to, like, say you attended the, you know, Mendocino County Fire Safe Council meeting and gave an update and provided information about your Firewise community, you know, that could be utilized as part of your educational, you know, component. But really the hours are really supposed to be tied to the fuel reduction work or home hardening or something that's going to make your home and community safer.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
I've had some experience in Marin County with Firewise community, and they had us doing all the things you would expect to create defensible space. And then the county decided to pitch in and take down some trees that were obstructing power lines. And I got busted by the county for code violation. So how do you work with the county agencies in making your assessments and creating your action plans, just to make sure that all parties are on board with the same goals?
Yeah, so you know, like I'm a state liaison working in the North State, you know, and so we cover a lot of area, and so we're not going to be privy to the dynamics of your county government, fire department relationships, all that stuff. And so I'm probably not the best resource to kind of answer that question. I would talk to, you know, some local fire officials or agency representatives or somebody that might have more information on the local factor that you're talking about. I don't really have that knowledge of that area at that level.
Okay.
Hey, are there any more questions? I want to be sensitive to your guys' time. So you guys have some more questions, and if you think of questions after the meeting too, we can follow up and ask them. And so you guys all ready to submit your applications?
Yeah, and then, you know, just to reiterate, you know, James put his email information in here. If you guys have any questions as you're going through the process, you know, feel free to reach out to him. You know, he's very knowledgeable on all this, and, you know, he's here to, you know, support you guys. And, you know, if something comes up that he doesn't have an answer to or doesn't, you know, you know, he'll come to me, and if I don't have an answer, whatever, we'll go to NFPA. So, you know, we'll get you the answer you need and help you with the direction you need to be successful.
Yeah, and we are here to help too. I mean, Eva's here to help, and we can help put you in touch with the right fire professionals to give you guys a good risk assessment. We can make the maps for you. So if that sounds challenging, don't worry about it. We can absolutely do that for you. And yeah, we're here to help every step of the way to make it as smooth and easy as possible. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I will let you guys go, and we'll give some updates from Fire Safe Council, and then we'll hear some updates from our neighborhood groups.
All righty. Well, thank you for the invite, and we're here to help you guys however you guys need it, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.